Nurture and support begins in 3, 2, 1.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Nurture and Support, a recommendation podcast sharing all the awesome since 1905. We're not
Close enough.
on recommendations, but in terms of podcasting, more like 2013. I'm Kelly Toole at KELLYTHUL on Twitter, and with me, as always, advancing the Amazon Prime directive successfully is Mel.
Hey everybody, I'm Mel at Karmic9 on Twitter, and it is great to be back for episode 104.
Indeed it is, and I hate it when my arch nemesis is right, but Sean Schick, who's a jerk, and don't everyone who's listening, take a moment, pause the podcast, go to Twitter, look up Sean Schick, tweet him, call him a jerk, because he's a jerk, and that's what we need to do. We need more people calling Sean a jerk, but
okay. Sean
has pointed out in the past that prior to me making recommendations, I sometimes offer rationale, background, an escape route, just kind of do something to kind of caveat my recommendations. And I'm going to be doing that with both my recommendations today, my main one and a social media one. So caveat number one, recommendation number one. What I'm recommending is an online game. It's Castle Wolfenstein Enemy Territory.
Okay.
And it is Cathal. I expect anyone who does kind of some gaming is somewhat familiar. Wolfenstein's, was it really the first major kind of world-based first-person go through grids and mazes and?
It really feels like it. I didn't really play it when it first came out. I didn't come around to it until later, but it certainly feels like it. I was too young to play a game like that, I think, when it came out, but my brothers all did.
Yeah, and around Wolfenstein, and then Doom came along, which took that kind of genre to kind of another fun level on that.
Yeah, Doom was awesome.
Doom was great, and the cool things about that is the gameplay is pretty cool, but you could also level build and kind of create. There'd be mods, and you could go ahead and kind of create all sorts of different worlds, play those different worlds with folks, offer them up online. People could download them and get going. And that was the same. That was true for Wolfenstein. The reason I'm recommending it is, and this is where I need to give credit where credit is due. I'm making this recommendation, but I didn't find this. This was found by somebody else who's advanced it here recently. But I really liked it, and so I said I'm going to recommend it. Our good friend Tony Solo, who Mel and I are alumni of Snark Radio, as is Tony, and in the early days of Snark Radio, there was some conversation. I know at that point Tony was quite interested. It's, hey, boy, wouldn't it be great if we could do some online gaming, everybody together?
Mm-hmm. I tried to get everybody to play Warcraft with me, but they wouldn't do it.
Well, I don't recall. This must have been before. Was this pre-Snark Radio, maybe?
I don't know. I've been trying to for a long time because I don't play much Warcraft anymore because I don't have anybody to play with.
Well, I'll have to see how certain setups work but I'm in because I'm not a big gamer, and we're going to talk a little bit more about why that is in a moment. But you kind of got the bug here again a little bit, because Tony had found this environment where it's Wolfenstein, it's online, it's free. The download runs on Windows, Mac, or Linux. I have it actually running on a Windows Vista machine, kind of a retired Vista laptop that's probably not great on RAM, certainly not great on graphic cards, and it's connected by Wi-Fi. Yeah. And I'm still able to play the game. The game works just fine. I don't play the game well, but the game works just fine.
So you're not one of those gamers that's trying to blame it on the game when you get fragged, huh?
No, I'd like to, but so here's the thing. I have zero sense of direction. There are times when I'm in my office building. For me to get out of my office building, it's a 50-50 proposition if I'm heading the right direction to go. Because it's just, I don't know, that part of the brain is gone. So I have no sense of direction. Couple that with the inability to comprehend spatial relationships. So if it's like hallway, left hallway, go over there, kind of remember this thing's over there. No, that stuff totally gone. No recollection, even when I do co-op Doom with some buddies of mine. I'd kind of forget, no, don't hit the button on the middle pillar because that's the one that releases all the imps. And I'd go, hey, this looks like a good button to hit. And away they go. So no short-term memory, spatial relationship problems, and zero sense of direction, which makes me a wonderful person to play in these games if you want to build your stats up.
Okay.
So I'm kind of meat. I admit that. But this Wolfenstein Enemy Territory is really fun. Like I said, it downloads and works across a lot of different platforms. The download's free. You can get it off of CNET. You can get it off of a number of other sites. There's then a series of servers you can go in as you connect up and get set up. Mm-hmm. You can pick an online server, just the typical kind of online gaming thing where it lists the servers, how many maximum players. You go in, you pick a side, and you get going. And if you kind of coordinate with your buddies, which is what Tony's been kind of doing here a little bit, you can start to get kind of a group of people to go play some online gaming for a little bit. So It's a fun game. It's really cool. It doesn't cost you anything to do. Tony found it. Want to give Tony credit. He found it, but I'm having been made aware of it, I wanted to make sure I shared it with everybody because I think it is really cool. And hook it up. And then if you need to build up some experience points, let me know, and I'll be happy to come in and you can kill me a bunch of times.
I've said before, I am not very good at shooters. It never was. Even back in the Doom days, I enjoyed it. Doom was a great game, and Unreal was another favorite. I sucked. I can't shoot anything, and that's what those games are about, but they were fun to play with people. So
cool. Unreal was because it took kind of like the good gameplay up the graphic quotient a little bit and add some other really interesting things there.
Yeah, Unreal Tournament was a favorite at my house. We had fun with that one.
That's another really good one. There was I think a Quake 3 tournament too that was also a really good
Quake Arena. It was.
And that was a really fun multiplayer game. Yeah. But this one, the price is right. It's free. Runs on a bunch of different platforms. Love to see if I could get it to run on my Chromebook, but that doesn't look like it's going to be an option. I'm going to dig around a little more. It does seem like you really want a mouse anyway. So it's running on a kind of a crappy old Vista laptop and doing the job. So I think anybody who wants to try it ought to give it a look. Plays fun, and like I said, you want to get some points, give me a shout, and you come kill me.
Well, I'll have to check that out when I need a break from my Fallout 4 that I'm still slogging through.
Yeah, you're gonna.
Codsworth loves me now, though, so he didn't turn on me.
How about the other? There's another robot in the mix now too, right? That you have yet to. You're having hard to win her over.
I just hate her. I just hate her. We have a mutual hate relationship.
So you're not getting along. Take it you're not getting along any better.
No. She wants a body, and I haven't gotten her a body yet, and she won't shut up about it, and I just hate her.
Send her over to Wolfenstein. Pick. I'll be laying there somewhere. She can go find me.
Yeah. So anyway, I plan on going and getting her damn body, so she will shut up and just carry my crap. I just want her to carry my crap and maybe shoot something once in a while, but that's okay.
And don't feel bad. I know when you recommended it, you talked about, well, it took me forever to realize the smart thing was to bring these people along because other people can carry your stuff. Mm-hmm. I've seen a bunch of videos on YouTube and things where they're stepping you through, talking about how much they love the game. And I have heard 5 or 6 times people go, and then I couldn't believe it. I don't know why I didn't think about it. I can give this stuff to somebody else. So.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It depends on what kind of games you've been playing lately. We forget about that, So, because probably most of us came out of playing Dragon Age, and you couldn't really do that.
You're on your own there, huh?
Yeah, you couldn't give anything. You could equip your companions with certain gear, but I don't think they could slog all your junk around. I don't remember. I've slept a couple times since I finished Dragon Age. So anyway, but this sounds cool. I'll have to look it up and get it downloaded, and then we'll have to figure out what server everybody's playing on.
Yep, that'd be cool. Because it's fun, and it's been a while since I've kind of gotten into that style of gaming. Mm-hmm. And it is fun with my limitations. I just have to kind of accept this. It's not going to be a rich and rewarding experience for me in terms of success, but every once in a while I can shoot somebody. I'm happy. So
you're right. We'll have to find you a sniper's nest to sit in.
I desperately look for those. It's like I need to find some place I can kind of just hide and not have to move because moving is a problem.
Yeah. I always had trouble reading the the online, the little on-screen maps that are supposed to be telling you where to go. Oh, I'm taking the flag to the enemy. I'm hand delivering my flag to the enemy now. Uh-oh. Wrong direction. Oh,
Been
well.
there.
Yeah, yeah. So is it my turn?
It is indeed.
Okay. Well, that wasn't a bad recommendation. You didn't need to give a caveat for that.
No, but it's just, it wasn't like a lot of the stuff was like, oh, look what I discovered, and this was something someone else discovered, but I think I'm just
It's still
sharing.
valid. It's right. We are sharing all the awesome, y'all. We never said we were unique.
That's right. Wherever we find it.
That's right. We stole it from someone else, but we're going to tell you about it first. So I'm actually, I guess it could be said I'm stealing an idea from Kelly this week. He normally is the documentary recommender here, but I am recommending a documentary this week. It's up on Netflix. I believe you can buy it from iTunes or you can get it from their website, and it's called Slingshot. And like I said, it's on Netflix right now. It is the story of Dean Kamen. And don't feel bad if you don't know who that is, because I didn't recognize his name either. But you'll know it with the next word that I say. Segway. He's the inventor that created the Segway. Now, he is apparently a genius inventor guy. I didn't know anything about him before this, and I really should once you watch this documentary. And see all of the things that he's been involved in. I really should have known his name, and there's no excuse for not. But he owns a company called DECA, DEKA, and they make medical equipment, which is where the Segway kind of came out of. They, before that, made a wheelchair, a revolutionary motorized wheelchair that could actually stand up so that people in it could reach higher shelves. There's a video of it standing up so tall and so straight someone could change a light bulb on the ceiling from inside of it, and it's stable. It's got these huge big rugged wheels, and it's really a really cool device for those who need it. And he's big about finding big insurmountable type problems and solving them. And that's one of the things he says, well, the first thing that's going to make him do something is when he gives somebody an idea. And if all these people tell him, you're crazy, it can't be done, well, then that's what gives him the drive to do it. So the documentary starts out talking about his early life, his family. His older brother was a doctor, and when he got out of medical school, he was working with children with leukemia. And back then, they didn't have some of the dosing equipment to give small enough doses to these kids of these cancer drugs. And so his brother Dean had already been tinkering around with inventing things since he was a kid, and he had installed a machine shop in his parents' basement and was making his own stuff and selling them. He was making his own circuit boards and etching them with the acid in his mother's oven. He really sounds like he was one of those, nerds type kids, and that he was into just all of that stuff. And amazingly, an amazing aside to all of that, he's dyslexic. He has a quote in the documentary that he says, people say he's a genius, and he's like, well, I am the slowest, dumbest genius you've ever met, because he struggled so much with not being able to read because he's dyslexic. And anyway, to get back to what he did for the leukemia kids, is he created a portable automatic dosing syringe for his brother to use. And it turned out, some other people that worked in all of that started seeing it, and they were immediately, no, you can't use that. But, someone might come in and walk out with that syringe, and they've got all the medication in there, because it's only pushing the small dose through that the child needs at a time. But you know what it does work good for? Something like insulin,
Oh.
things like that you're giving in small doses. And that's what DECA makes. DECA pretty much makes a bunch of revolutionary medical equipment. And that's where he got started and got got into all of this. Eventually, what the name of the documentary is Slingshot, and what that refers to is a water purification invention that he has made that could bring an end to everyone in the world not having clean water. It's small and it's able to purify pretty much the dirtiest water out there to give people all over the world clean water to drink in areas that they don't have access to it. They throw out a bunch of statistics in here when they get to that part of the documentary about, 50% of all the diseases in the world could be fixed with cleaning the water that these people are drinking. You've got cholera, you've got all of the things that you get in what we consider third world countries that don't have access to clean water, something we here in the States take for granted. But they also mention, our water quality is declining rapidly. I remember when they showed this little snapshot in the documentary, I remember back when it was on the news about them finding all sorts of prescription drugs and chemicals in our tap water that the water treatment facilities aren't able to clean out, the trace amounts of hormones that are all in our drinking water, stuff like that. So how this machine came about was he was again working on a piece of medical equipment, this time for dialysis patients who they're either in kidney failure or they don't have kidneys anymore and they're having to go in for dialysis. And this is something where when this happens, these patients are either having to live in the hospital because they're having to have constant dialysis, or they are having to go into a dialysis treatment center usually every other day for the rest of their life. It's a huge downer to your lifestyle, having to go into a facility to do this all of the time. And he just was convinced that there had to be a better way. This isn't a really difficult procedure. It's time consuming, but they should be able to do this themselves at home, was what he believed. And it took years for him to finally work out kind of the kinks in this system. But what he ended up coming up with was a machine that used vapor compression distillation to produce medical grade water for this dialysis machine that he created that would work in people's homes. One of the biggest problems once he worked out, the actual dialysis part, was that you needed huge amounts of water to do this procedure, and it has to be clean water. And shipping water, through the mail is very heavy and it's very expensive. And so he wanted to use their tap water. But tap water all across the country varies regionally by the impurities that are in it, and they needed pure water. So you couldn't come up with, he needed a one size fits all. This one thing is going to handle all of the water everywhere. And that's why distillation is how the medical companies actually make medical grade water. That's in the IV fluids that you would get at the hospital. That's in any injections that you get that are using diluent water. It's all distilled water that they've made so that it's incredibly pure. So he developed this revolutionary way to use vapor compression to do this process in a method that would not be detrimental to your electric bill, let's put it that way. When they actually work out the math on how much energy you need to make all of this water, it was astronomical. But he got it down to where it's so efficient and reuses the energy that it creates in heat to create the steam vapor to do the distillation process, that it reuses all of that energy, and it's down to using the same amount of energy as a hairdryer.
Wow.
So it's really pretty amazing. And he's like, if I can do this for people here, then you could use the same technology to make clean water for people everywhere who don't have access to clean water. And so that kind of set off this path he went on. It took him years and years to get to this point. Okay, so Dean Kamen decided that he could use this method. He needed to create a machine that could do this vapor compression distillation since he had gotten the energy problem fixed, that he could use this to solve the world's water problem. And he really, really believes in this. And he spent years and years and years working on this machine, trying to get it smaller and smaller. And then once he had like a prototype that he thought was workable, he started trying to find somebody to help him distribute it. They went to the trouble of the company themselves. They'd been working on it for so long that they decided they needed to go do a test themselves. And they went to Honduras and installed it there and ran kind of a test on it, and it worked great. And he actually, they had kind of a tit for tat sort of system going on where the kids going to school could bring a big water jug and they could fill it up, the kids going to school. And when they first did this, it was only boys because only boys went to school. But what they found anecdotally after that was, after a couple of days of this, the parents started sending the girls to school. And he's like, that was a totally unintended consequence of doing it this way, but these little girls got to go to school because they could get water. And in this community, I guess the girls were kept at home because, they didn't need to go to school. So he was like, that was completely unintended. And let me segue.
Yeah, I see what you did there.
Back to something I should have mentioned before. When I talk about, I should have known this man's name. I really should have. He created first the robotics competition that they've been doing for years and years with kids creating robots, and then they go battle them. It's a kind of a sporting event. He created that. It's his baby. His brother worked on it with him before he passed away. But he's really done some amazing things. He's really, when I say he's a nerd, he's a nerd, and he seems kind of goofy. He seems really genuine, and that he really cares about the science education in this country. And the story that they tell in the documentary about the creation of FIRST was he had turned one of their old company buildings, the bottom floor, into a hands-on kind of science activity center for kids. And he was in there one day, and he noticed all the kids had these sports jersey type things on, and he went around asking them if they could name a scientist, and they couldn't. And that you can tell sort of when you watch the documentary that even when he's telling this story that he's offended. He's horrified and offended that, and these kids are here at a science place, but not one child there that day could actually name a living scientist to him. And he decided that what really needed to happen was you needed to change the culture of the U.S. and make science be a thing. He shares my general what the hell about sports. What? This is something that all of these people pour all of this emotion into because this one guy has a slightly higher shooting percentage than all these other guys. So he was funny talking about that because I'm like, I can relate to that. I don't get sports.
Yeah, but there's math involved to calculate that shooting percentage.
That's true, and it's amazing that some of these kids can figure that out, but they can't do something else. And I say that because I have several of them in my family who I never could understand why they could remember all of these sports statistics, but we couldn't write a book report because we couldn't read the book. Too long, didn't read. One of those type things.
But you'll spend hours going over data to calculate slugging percentage.
Right, and give over huge sections of your brain to memorizing this data when you have a math test tomorrow. Shouldn't you worry about that? But, I digress. He's just funny when he's talking about that because you can just see he is so inspired by scientists going all the way back to Archimedes that he talks about, that he just really can't understand why these kids aren't more interested. And so they decided to form this group first for the robotics stuff, and turn it into kind of a sporting competition because, well, the kids seem to like this sports thing so much. What's cooler than robot sports? And that gets televised usually every year. I think it's starting up again in January. I should have looked it up, but that should be available soon. So anyway, he really cares about education and kids into that. It's really pretty obvious throughout the entire documentary that that's something that's really very important to him. He's really into educating children, and no matter where he is, whether it's here in the U.S. or it's in other countries. So I really should have known his name, Dean Kamen. Remember it. He's done a lot more cooler stuff than the Segway, and I had no idea because
So did they talk about the Segway at all?
they briefly talk about, all that hype, and then it's, that's it. And he, they briefly talked to him about how, he's not disappointed in the Segway at all. Yeah, it was expensive, but he really believes that, um, sometime here in the not too distant future, we're not going to be driving cars. Most of the population is going to be living in these huge cities, and we're not going to have cars. We're not going to be driving cars. We won't have the resources. The pollution from all these vehicles would be too much, and that there won't be cars. He believes that something like the Segway will be the way people travel within a city. There's some merit to that when you hear him talk about it. I never gave any thought really to the Segway because it was obviously not something I was going to be using out in rural Texas. So I never paid that much attention to it personally. So this documentary is called Slingshot, and it's the story of how he gets the slingshot out there. It's out there being used in a lot of places now, and of all people, after the big trouble he had in finding somebody to help him, he went to all sorts of aid organizations, he went to the government, he went to the UN, and everybody's like, hey, that's a really cool idea, good luck with that. And they all said, well, we don't have the resources to do that. We don't have the distribution networks to do that. But you know who he finally decided did?
Amazon.
No. No, but they probably could have. Coca-Cola.
Oh.
Coca-Cola has bottling facilities in 206 countries. That's more countries than are in the UN. And he talked to them about it, and they signed on to it. Now, you might remember, I remember when this happened, but I'm terrible with dates. I believe the documentary said this happened in 2005 when Coca-Cola got in trouble in India for a bottling facility that they had there using up all of the water in this area, and these people were out there protesting this bottling plant because it was using all of their water and they didn't have any water to drink, and they had to shut that plant down. Well, I didn't really realize, but Coca-Cola shortly thereafter made a promise to become water neutral by, I believe they said 2020, which is coming up here pretty quickly. And what they mean by that is that they replace the water that they use in making their products. So this may be a way that they thought that they could help do that. So they kind of made a deal. They wanted some new Coca-Cola fountains. They hadn't updated any of their fountains in a really long time. And he wanted someone to help him get this machine out there to see if it was going to work. And he's funny where he says in there that, did he really want to work on a soda fountain? No, but, sometimes you have to work on a soda fountain to get what you need. So they redesigned a soda fountain for them, and Coca-Cola held up their end and installed 5 of their models in Ghana, I believe. And they found, this was a test run. It worked really well, but they found that the machines themselves were really very large. They were still too big. They were hard to move around. They found that the surprise, the power situation could be very
Dicey.
fluid. Yeah. So they had some work to do on it, but all in all, it worked great. They were really inspired by the changes they saw in the communities that they put these in. And so Coca-Cola went ahead with helping them distribute it, and they had to make the machine smaller. They had to do some more work on it, but they were going to make 50 to then put out there, and they had to reduce the size by half. So they apparently did that, and they've got them out there. Now, I do get the impression, they don't actually talk about it in this documentary, but I do get the impression that these machines are not free. They seem to be quite expensive for them to make, which you can imagine, just all of the work that goes into them. I don't know. This documentary was made in 2014. So I don't know how they've changed their production capacity on it, but essentially every one of these machines is handmade, from what they're talking about. So anyway, it's a very cool idea, and that is something that really could revolutionize communities in places that don't have access to clean water, because that is a serious problem that we don't here in the United States, even in the midst of Texas and our drought prone weather, that we really don't think about that much. You know, we go on water rationing here because we've been in a drought for so long, and people are just horrified that their grass is going to die because they can't water so much. And there are a lot of people in the world that we don't think about who don't have water. They can't turn on a tap and get water. They have to actually go trek to find water, and if that water is polluted, their kids may get sick and die. So this is really very cool, and he seems like just a really cool person. This was really in the midst of all the dark doomsday news that we have going on these days. I really felt better having watched something like this that was a little inspiring and uplifting. So it is up on Netflix right now. It's called Slingshot. It's available all sorts of places. And if you want to really find out the nitty gritty of how this machine works, I saw that there was an article up on How Stuff Works on their website about how this distillation process actually works in that machine. So that's a cool little aside for those who want to look into it. But he seems like a pretty cool guy. He's not Tony Stark level of mad scientist. He's much more grounded, but he's got a really cool steam engine in his house. He has a helicopter that he actually keeps in his house.
In his house.
Yes, he had a dream when he was a kid that this is what he wanted, and he has an entire kind of like a glass garage door that folds up, and his helicopter, it's a small helicopter, is kind of on this robotic pallet that he can move on out like its own personal little Segway, and he can fly off in his helicopter. He's got a really cool house, and he likes to make clocks. So it's really, I think it's well worth a watch. It's only like an hour and a half long, but it's a cool look at an inventor genius type that if you're like me, you may not have heard very much about. So
That's really cool. Yeah, it's weird because when the Segway came out and all the marketing, as you started to talk about this, it just felt to me that who was ever behind that was a lot more about, I mean, it was obviously amazing technology, but it was a little bit more about how can I make money? How can I, it's just kind of felt because they were promoting it so hard to begin with. But what a tremendous story in terms of what this guy's done. Very cool.
I never looked at it very much. And they're showing old clips of him being back on the Colbert Report talking about this water technology and being on a bunch of talk show type stuff. There's video, it looks like, of him doing a TED Talk. And I've missed all of that. I don't know how. I guess because I didn't maybe recognize his name, so I didn't realize who it was. But he seems like a really cool person who genuinely, I'm sure money is nice, but while he has some cool toys like a helicopter and stuff, he wears a blue jean shirt and blue jeans. He has a closet full of blue jean shirts, denim shirts, and blue jeans. That's his work outfit, and he never stops working. He's always working, and that appears to be the only clothes that he owns, except for he had like this little black windbreaker that he occasionally had on, I guess, when it was a little chilly. So he's eccentric, but he does seem he's done really good things. So it's not just about making money off a Segway. When he was talking about the Segway, he seems like it was really something that he believed in, and he still believes in it. He has this little thing where he talks about, yeah, it's going to be an overnight success sometime here in the next 20 years.
One of these days. And sometimes it takes a while for us to catch up to some people.
And he talks about stuff like that. He gives a bunch of examples from past inventions, Bell telephone being one of them, how they went to Western Union trying to, they were using the telegraph system, and Bell was like, well, you could do this with voice. And Western Union they saw no usefulness in that whatsoever, none, period. And they're like, well, that's a real cool toy, but what would anybody ever actually do with that? So he went out and made Bell telephone, and Western Union went away. So, he talks about things like that. Sometimes people just can't see the point of something. They can't see where it would fit into their lives. But it's really that sort of something that will revolutionize the world once it takes a hold, like telephones. They don't have power in large parts of Africa, but they have cell phones. We've joked before about there are large sections of Africa that have better internet service than I have.
But not anymore. Now you're
more. I think I'm doing all right. Yeah. So
cool. Yeah, and so far from documentary recommendations are not my exclusive domain, so I wouldn't view that as stealing there. However, I do feel I must point out, had I been the one recommending this movie, I too would have, for this particular inventor, worked in, let me segue to another point, and I too would have described the power situation as fluid around a water treatment tool. So yeah. So
I had a couple of them, but I think I forgot to throw. I had a deep water reference in there somewhere, but I lost it.
Well, you were good. You kept the good ones, definitely. Very cool. All right. And even so, there's a couple interesting things are going to happen here. We'll move into social media recommendations. What I want everyone to do is listen very closely as I make my recommendation, because you're going to actually hear Mel's eyes roll up into the back of her head. Okay?
Oh, no.
So everyone listen very carefully. But I believe in this recommendation. I will provide my justifications why.
Okay.
So
I'm ready.
For this week, my social media recommendation is any one of the Houston Texans cheerleaders that you want to follow. And there it goes. Now let me explain. And again, I'm going to use your own words against you here.
Explain.
Yeah. I even felt worse about this recommendation when you went down the whole thing about, nothing about sports, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, crap. Yeah. It's even worse. But anyway, you talked about the dark news that's out there, and it's a rough time. Mm-hmm. You add these ladies to your timeline, and you get nothing but happiness. There's lots of, I'm fired up, it's Monday. I'm fired up, it's Sunday. Go Texans. Lots of unbright, they are obviously they have other jobs. This is not a full-time job, but they take this part of their job very seriously, and their job is to be a cheerleader for the Texans, and they do a great job. But the reason I'm recommending them is that in my real life day job, whatever you want to call it, I bump into social media activity some. It's some of the things I'm involved with, and I just like it when I see somebody do it well, and they really seem. The Texans organization and this group of folks seems to have figured it out and do it really well, because for me, good social media is interactive and authentic, and that you don't have and that you participate and you're active, and they have that in spades. So most of them, you follow them, they follow you back. You tweet them, they typically, you don't get a lot of interaction. You're going to get a favorite or a retweet, but you get some level of interaction. And you get what you might expect, from someone who's part of their world as a cheerleader. There's lots of go Texans, lots of yay Monday, oh, go time to work out, yay rah. This is my favorite sister on the crew and all that. So it's not upper level philosophy studies that you're going to kind of gain a lot of things there. But they're enthusiastic, they're nice, they follow you back, and it's really cool because I was just fascinated as I kind of watched how they kind of executed. One of them one time took a shot at one of their practices, and you've got like 15 of them, and they're all sitting there with cell phones in their hands, nose down in their cell phone, tweeting, retweeting. You know, they just actually make time to make social media a part of their thing. And if their job is to get people to pay more attention to the Houston Texans, I'm a Bears fan, and that's just like not happening. You know, there's not a lot of football enjoyment being a Chicago Bears fan these days. So I'm in the market for, is there another team that I can kind of watch a little bit or care what's going on? And by their participation in social media, I check how the Texans are doing. So I guess they're doing their job, and I guess it's working. So
I can't remember what you said there a minute ago about the uplifting and the something or other. Yeah, but I followed a couple of those, I think, because you were following them. And do you know they unfollowed me?
Oh, no. Oh, no. Maybe I don't.
I think maybe I wasn't one of those uplifting types.
Well,
or maybe,
I don't know how.
They saw me say too many bad things about sports. I just thought that was funny when you started into that. And I'm like, yeah, pretty sure one of those little blonde girls unfollowed me.
Yeah, okay, the blondes might be a problem. Maybe they may be unfollowers, but
that's funny.
if you're not following so it's Houston Texas Cheerleaders HTC, so they're all at HTC _ whatever.
And their name, yeah.
HTC Sarah C. She'd be my recommendation. Well, if I have to give one, she's a redhead. She's not a blonde, so she'll probably not unfollow you. And she's been very nice. So I highly doubt Sarah would have unfollowed you. But that's terrible. I'm sorry to hear that.
No, I don't hold grudges, really. Yeah. I don't blame a cheerleader for unfollowing me. I would unfollow myself if I could.
I can't imagine, because they are I think there's a genuineness to it, but they are, incessantly positive and enthusiastic, which I guess is an attribute you want in a cheerleader. But and since I am not any of that, I expect I might be on. I'll have to keep an eye on it from there.
I think I'm probably way worse than you are. At least in public.
A lot of there's not a lot of anti-sports stuff that comes from me. That might in their evaluation. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, but
that's funny though.
That is kind of so. Yeah, but I've had this one in my pocket for a while in terms of when am I gonna? Because I don't know if Mel's gonna think this is the greatest recommendation in the world, but I finally decided that I think they're nice additions. It's, to me, part of it is I'm watching the practice of social media, and I'm just really impressed with because they got Instagram and YouTube, and they've got a couple of core accounts that kind of run alongside with the cheerleaders to kind of provide support for it, and they seem to be doing a good job at it. So I just wanted to give them props for that. And
good. I hope they're getting extra pay boosts for that, because I've heard stuff in the news lately about the cheerleaders kind of wanting to get paid.
That would seem to be fair.
For the work that they do. Yeah.
Well,
Jerry Jones didn't really like that idea, from what I remember hearing on the news. But yeah.
That's not surprising.
No, but I think those girls deserve a paycheck.
I'm with you. And particularly they do if it's kind of overtime, if they're active in social media promoting the team and being, they got at least one person caring more about the Houston Texans than he ever cared about the Houston Texans. So progress. I mean, they should get some.
Right, and at least they're not getting caught out in all those sports scandals. So you need a good face of your sports team.
Yeah, that's right. I think it's probably Jerry Jones is probably a little bitter about social media, because there's every once in a while little windows into his life show up on there, and they're not super impressive, shall we say?
Well, you'd have to be a pseudo impressive person for that to happen.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Mel hates sports, y'all. Blah blah sports. But go follow Kelly's cheerleaders. Yeah. They are nice, even if one of them did unfollow me.
You do some work on that. Let me know who it is. I'm gonna whoever that is, if I'm following.
It was quite a while back, because They've been, they've been around for, at least on my radar, it's been months and months now. Yeah. And they kind of got involved with everybody in our little circle, and they unfollowed me.
Most of us. Because,
yeah, we got to cut some stuff here.
That's just terrible. All right. Funny. Well, speaking of somebody no one a cheerleader will follow, we're going to turn it over to Matt Shivers, and he's going to give you all the information on how you connect to us, except Stitcher, but we're on Stitcher, and YouTube, email, websites, etc. And hope you shoot us a note or tweet us, shoot some recommendation stuff so we can steal them and take credit for them and give them whatever you want to do. Mm-hmm. And thanks again for listening, everybody.
We'll be back next week.
You can contact us on our website, nurtureandsupport.net, or email us at nurtandsupp@gmail.com. That's NURTANDSUPP@gmail.com, or tweet us at nurtandsupp on Twitter. You can also catch Nurture and Support on YouTube. Just search Nurture and Support or Kelly Toole.
Nurturing and supporting